And this is actually a picture of one of our data centers at the time. So it was a pretty low capability IT space at that point in time. And we knew we needed to do a lot of work because we're a high growth, innovative .com organisation. We've got very ambitious growth plans, and it's really about our ability to take new products to market that really defines how we perform. So that wasn't going to work for us, so we had to set about really working out a new way to work. And this is the site of the time. This is going back about 3 years, and at the time, most of our apps were incredibly difficult to deploy. They only went out the door on very, very long release cycles. The stories from the time was it would take over 2 years for some of the applications to actually have been changed and moved into production. So ground zero, we had to do a lot of work to assess really what we'd got and where things were at. And it was the first time I was actually involved in a consulting capacity at the time. It was the first time I've actually had to take a CIO to the side and say, really, everything's pretty bad at the moment. We've got a lot of work to do in that the environments need work, the applications need work, the teams need work, the processes need work. We really need to think about what we do going forwards. That was also a really good thing because it gave us that turning point to really drive some really, really significant change in the organisation. So we set about really rebuilding the organisation, the IT organisation and how it worked. So one of the things we started at that point was really learning how to work in a highly collaborative way. So we started moving all the teams together, all the skill sets together into completely self-contained teams. So teams that had all the skill sets they needed to solve a particular problem. And at the same time, in parallel, we fixed. This is actually one of our data centers today. We still operate physical production DCs. This is one of our data centers. We moved our data centers in about 6 months, and we replatformed the sites or the key realestate.com.au site in about 6 to 10 months. So it was really the end of the first part of the journey. That was really just getting the foundational pieces back in place so that we could move forward. At that point, we started to really look at the organisation and start to change the way that we led the organisation and the structures that we worked within. So previously, the organisation, like a lot of organisations, had been structured by technology platform. So this team worked on this application, this team worked on this application. And the challenge there was for us to do any one project or product change, we often needed to coordinate multiple teams to get anything done. It was a pretty significant coordination problem for us. So we shifted the way that the organisation worked. We moved into what we call line of business teams. It's very similar actually to the Amazon.com model that you may hear Werner talk about, where a team is responsible for the changes through the whole technology stack. So if you're working for our commercial business, for example, on a product in that space, you're responsible for making changes all the way through our technology to make that product work. We also changed the way that we thought about design. So we spent a lot of time working with, I don't know if any of you were in Jason Fennell's talk before this one. We spent a lot of time working with Jason to really closely embed our design thinking into the way that we work. So putting designers into the teams and making sure the teams had got the right research data to actually make good informed decisions on where the first iterations of the products would go. And this is really where Amazon's products start to join us on the journey. So the challenge that we had in our old world IT model was that we were really set up to do one thing at a time. Our environment model and the way that our applications worked and our deployment processes meant that we could put the whole organisation behind one project, migrate it through a few heavyweight environments that took quite a long time. But we couldn't, say, run 20 teams working on 20 independent products the way that we do today. So we had to get to a model that let us do that. And I remember sitting down with my peer, who's the head of IT operations at REA at the time, and looking at him and saying, well, what we really need is to be able to create full end-to-end environments for every single developer in REA and be able to do it at the push of a button and to be able to do it really, really quickly. And 2 years ago, that was just so challenging and such a difficult concept for us to grasp. It was a real organisational shift to try and get people to move the thinking to that was actually a possible thing to do. Today, through a lot of hard work by the guys back in Melbourne, if you're an engineer in REA, you can turn up in the morning and you can sit down at your console and you can push a button, go and make your cup of coffee, and come back in 20 minutes, and about 91% of the time you'll have a full working REA ecosystem ready there for you to go. There was a tweet this morning after I made that comment, someone asked what happens the other 9% of the time. What happens is we're constantly evolving that infrastructure, and that infrastructure is built by a series of scripts and technology that we've built ourselves to be able to do that. And sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes the guys that work on those tooling support products will check in something that doesn't quite work, and the next person that pushes the button that says build me an environment, the environment doesn't work. So we have to get that working again really quickly, because otherwise we've got every developer in REA could potentially be hampered by that problem. So you do create new problems for yourself, but on the whole it's a much better way for us to work. The next stage of the journey for us was to be able to start to move those environments together into build pipelines. So we used continuous integration really heavily at the time. Who's familiar with continuous integration? Just a show of hands. So for those of you that aren't, continuous integration is the process of I, as a developer, check in a change that I've made to the application. The application is built. A full series of tests, unit tests and functional tests, integration tests run against the application, and I'm told whether that application still works or doesn't, so I get a red-green result. And that first stage of the process will generally happen in our pipelines around here. And then we started to bring the different stages of our ecosystem together into an end-to-end pipeline. So I check in my local component change. If that passes, it's promoted into a broader ecosystem where it's tested against other leading-edge check-ins from other developers. If that passes, it's promoted to another environment where the scope is broadened still. We may do things like performance testing, load testing, those pieces. And it will get to a point where it will either go immediately into production. We actually don't do that. All our check-ins don't go direct to production. But what it will do is sit at a point where a product manager can take a look at the check-ins to that point and say, yes, I'm happy for that to go to production, push a button, and it's automatically promoted into our production environment. Our applications today are at varying levels of that maturity. The majority of our applications today are at push-button deployment. You can push a button and deploy them to any one of our environments, whether it's EC2 or whether it's one of our physical production data centers. And we have varying levels of how well our applications are strung together in terms of the pipelines that take them through to production, the test frameworks that work against them. But over the next 12 months, we fully expect that all our applications and all our products will be in that model. So if I come back in 12 months' time, I should be able to talk to you about what having every single product and application in that world looks like to us. Another key thing that we did when we really rebuilt the way that our IT delivery organisation works was we set up a delivery centre in China. We did that for various reasons, access to talent being a key one of them. And a key part of this setup process was that if we hadn't set up our dev test environments in the EC2 model, we probably wouldn't have been able to make this work. The reason we wouldn't have been able to make it work is we took a slightly unusual approach to the way that we set up our delivery centre in China, in that pretty much all of our teams are distributed. So what we don't do is we don't take a discrete piece of work, send it to China and bring it back. That's not our mode of working. What we do is we take a bunch of guys from Melbourne, a bunch of guys from China and say, you're on the same team, work together to solve this problem. And there's a lot of social benefits in doing that. It creates a human ecosystem that we find works really well for us. Because when I've worked in distributed models before, even mature distributed agile models, it's very easy for a local team to let a distributed team burn when it doesn't affect their project or their product that they're in pain. But when it's suddenly half of your team that's 6,000 miles away and the VPN's gone down or there's an issue with the tooling that builds the environments, you find the guys fix it pretty quickly. And that goes on both sides. The guys will really jump in and fix problems if there's an issue with our environments or other things that are affecting the team on the other side of the screen and preventing them from working. So really getting our dev test environments into EC2 has really been a key enabler in both being able to do the level of parallelism that we have in place, but also the level of distribution across our teams that we've got in place as well. And there's some great symptoms that we've found from an innovation perspective. So as I mentioned this morning, we do hack days that take place once a quarter that are happening at the moment. Really in the old world, it was really difficult for any of our engineers, and our engineers really love to experiment, they love to play. Our business really lends itself to creative thinking. I mean, most people that we go to a barbecue with on a weekend have got ideas around how we could build the site, and we're no different. We've got our own ideas as to how we can improve things. One of the real enablers of EC2 for us has been being able to spin up either components of our environment or the full environment for us to be able to play, experiment on hack days, or just play in our own time. Also, when we've got things that are coming down the roadmap that we're trying to plan and understand a bit more around how complex they are, what we need to do, we can now quite easily spin up self-contained environments and just throw data at our applications, make quick changes, just see what happens, see what breaks, and it gives us a much better indication of what kind of risk profile we're dealing with of the projects that are coming down the pipeline and how much work's going to be involved in completing those projects. Here's a graph that was taken a little while ago, a shot of our EC2 usage. So here's generally what a day looks like to us from an EC2 consumption perspective. This is our base load. So this is we have a set of services instances that we never turn off, and there's various reasons for that. We're turning off more and more all the time, or shutting them down for periods of the day or overnight. Things we don't shut down at the moment can be, as an example, our search engine doesn't mind being shut down. It doesn't particularly like being started up. So we've had to do a lot of work to get some of our infrastructure to work in a model where we start and stop instances at will. But as we found over time, that this base load that we've got every day of things that just need to run is just going down and down. And then Australia come to work, and the guys start to power up their environments, power up the CI servers, start work, and we're starting to consume more and more capacity. We get to the peak capacity when China are online as well, which is around the middle of our day. So the guys in China come online. And then what happens here? It's the end of the day. What happened for a long time was that the end of the day pattern looked like that peak. All the instances stayed on. We went home and were paying for that consumption. We built some tools ourselves that at the end of the day go through all our instances, go through all the components that we've got running in EC2, and they turn them off. And we use the EBS-backed instances to be able to do that. So we maintain state, but we effectively turn off all of the apps when they're not being used. And then about an hour before the guys get back in the morning, we've got automated processes that start to power up all of the instances again. So by the time Australia hits the ground on the Australian morning, everything's there, everything's working, it's ready to go. And similarly to the challenges we had with being able to push a button and produce an environment, to start with, we had a lot of pain. So you find that you start to write these kind of scripts, and you start to stop instances, and the thing that's meant to bring them up in the morning doesn't. And the worst case, which we have had once, is that the guys come to Australia in the morning and nothing's up, and you spend the next half of the day trying to get all those instances back online. You get through pretty quickly. I mean, you will have teething challenges with those pieces, but by the time you're through it, you never go back to the world that you're in before. And the great thing for REA is we've been able to deliver a lot of results along the way. So over the last 2 years, we've re-platformed pretty much all of our major sites onto a new global platform that's both in Australia and Italy. The Real commercial brand, the Real Estate Australia brand, and the Casa brands have all been moved to a new global platform that have leveraged this technology. We've taken out quite a lot of new products to the market that you may or may not have seen. We took our first mobile apps to the market, which we're particularly proud of, and actually just went through the 1 million download mark. And being able to pull up independent environments for the testing of iOS and Android applications, and be able to build APIs and experiment in those environments was really critical to how we took those products to market. Okay, so we were really pleased with that. We kind of gave ourselves a pat on the back. We said that's a good effort. We gave ourselves a perfect 10 out of 20. As we've reflected on the journey that we've been on over the last few months, there's definitely a few things that we really need to refocus on, and that is really how, as an organisation, we really now start to leverage the power of the infrastructure that we put in place. So we went on the journey that we went on to really fix some fundamental problems from a technology perspective, and actually they give us a lot of organisational powers that we didn't have previously. That now the name of the game is really how do we leverage them and how do we work with the rest of our organisation to make the most of the infrastructure we have in place, but also how we use them to go faster as an organisation as well, because although we've improved a lot over the last 2 years, we've still got a lot of mileage and we've still got a lot of self-improvement that we need to go through. So new directions. Okay, so a few quotes. First one from Henry Ford. He said, if I'd asked my customers what they wanted, they simply would have said a faster horse. And from Mr. Jobs, you can't just ask customers what they want and then try to give that to them. This has been a real dilemma for us over the last few years, working really closely with the UX team and our product managers, in that what's the right level of interaction with users? How do you do user testing in the right way? How do you use these technologies that we've put in place to really maximise the value of the products that you take to market? The real breakthrough moment, I think, for us has been when we started to really look closely at a lot of the work that's happened in the lean startup space. So a lot of the work that Eric Ries has done. I spoke this morning about one of our products that we've taken to market, really trying to apply these ideas. So if you're not across the mentality of the lean startup, the idea is it's really about focusing on identifying what a minimum viable product looks like and getting that to market as quickly as you can. And there's always conversations around what's the minimum viable product. That's really a difficult thing to define, but actually defining that thing, taking it to market, and then collecting as much data on the consumer behaviours around that product as you possibly can. So we have a lot of tools and techniques that we've put in place to collect what you guys actually do when you hit our site, the way that you're behaving. It's generally not the way that we expect you to behave when we launch the products. The next piece of the journey is really about producing hypotheses and tests that we want to run around the way that we think people will interact, and setting up tests to actually prove or disprove those hypotheses. So if you get any time to see the way our guys work, they'll have these ideas that they're really trying to quickly test. The next stage is, based on the real world information that we're getting back, really quickly being able to iterate over the products once they're in market. So I mentioned our Home Ideas product this morning, which we took to market in October. Since that's gone live, we've really put a lot of effort into how we iterate that product and make it as successful as we possibly can. And today, the guys, they can deploy interestingly, they can deploy that application, that product at will. Today, it's about a 7-minute process to deploy something into production. It's completely automated end-to-end now. So that's a good thing. They choose to go a few times a week, sometimes a few times a day, just depending on what they're trying to prove, the features that they're putting into production and the information that they're getting back. Really driving these kind of models across all of our applications and helping us be able to really innovate products that are in the market, we see as absolutely being key in terms of where we go next in terms of our product roadmaps. Space Invaders. Who's played Space Invaders? Everyone's played Space Invaders. Okay. The really difficult and frustrating thing about this this game is I remember being a kid playing Space Invaders in the arcades, and you're smashing the button that fires the bullets. Did you guys remember doing that? You're hitting that thing as fast as you can. The problem is, until that bullet disappears, it doesn't fire a new one. And a lot of organisational thinking is still very much that one-shot mentality, that I have to fire a bullet and see where once that bullet's landed, I can fire the next bullet. And often that bullet can take a long journey, particularly if you're trying to hit that red guy at the back. And what we're finding is that the tools, techniques, the infrastructure that we've got in place now really support us in firing a lot of bullets at the same time, and being able to quickly redirect if the bullet's on the wrong trajectory. So it's an interesting organisational journey that we're on at the moment, to move away from we only get one shot thinking towards we get lots of shots once we're in the market to try and make something successful. Another really interesting side effect of where we're at in the journey is, do you guys follow the DevOps movement, the idea of moving delivery and site operations really closely together? Is that something you guys are aware of? One of my favourite quotes from the DevOps movement was, we need to treat our servers like cattle and not pets. So don't take your servers home at night, tuck them into bed and treat them as your own special snowflake that you can only you can change, and only you really understands the way that server works. And we need to get away from that. And this has really helped us do that in the site operations space. All our sysadmins now largely work within our delivery teams, and we're about to move a lot of the operational control of our applications into the responsibility of those delivery teams. But one thing that we've found as we've gone through the product journey is that our teams have started to think about the underlying infrastructure as cattle, but they still think of the product as pets. So if we take a product to market, if we take 20, then we maybe should expect 5 of them to be wildly successful, 5 of them to be reasonably successful, and the other 10 die over time. What we're finding is, and I'm guilty of this as well, we get attached to our products. So when it's time to take that cattle to slaughter, often we really have a difficult time, because that cow, you've given a name, you've taken it home for the last year, you've nurtured it, you've fed it, you've given it human food. It's a really difficult journey. Something that we've also watched really closely is where Facebook have gone over the last 6 months, and really seen some really interesting nuggets of information come out of those guys. One thing really struck us around the information that Zuckerberg released before the IPO, and he seemed to release a lot more than usual with some pretty clear messages around it. But one that we spoke about quite a lot that we found was really interesting was the 2011 profit number. It was $1.000 billion. Not 1 billion or 1.1 billion, it was 1.000 billion. If that's not a managed number, I don't know what is. And it was a really interesting message, I think, from Zuckerberg, that my job's to run this company, but it's to balance the profit that we make with the product engineering that we do as well. And my job's to manage that balance, which I thought was really interesting, along with that quote. But some of the things that we found along the journey that have really interested us, particularly with Facebook, is some sentiments that really resonate with us. So moving fast and break things. We've often got a reluctance to break things, and for good reason. But what we've found as we've looked more deeply, and I'd urge you to do the same, is that with our sites and products, there's some things that are far more important to us than others. There's things that we just need to protect and have there 100% of the time, and there's other things that we can experiment with in slightly different ways. And for a long time, we treated everything the same. And to an extent, we still do today, and we're doing a lot of work to look at how our test infrastructure works to make sure that we're really focused on protecting the things that are really key, but less so and more experimental with the things that aren't. A great one that we loved that, again, the EC2 model really supports us with is code wins arguments. Don't sit in a room for a day arguing around, this is the best way to do something or this is the best way to do something. Power up your environment, put it in, let's run some some tests across it. Let's look at the data and let's make a decision based on that. And that goes from an engineering perspective as well as a product perspective. And the ongoing conversation we have organisation at the moment, which is a really interesting one, is around the idea of done is better than perfect. It's a tough one. We're constantly managing the expectations of our engineers versus our product managers versus sales. In any product organisation, you have really interesting conversations around what's the right thing to take out there. But using these kind of models to really help us think through what's good enough, and then being able to move forward around that is really changing the nature of a lot of those conversations. Here's some guys, I won't talk about this too much, but if you're interested in a lot of the kind of product and innovation ideas that I've spoken about in depth, that are really supported by the techniques of using cloud technologies to run your environments, using continuous delivery techniques and putting build pipelines together, then these guys are really interesting to look at as to how that can help evolve your product thinking. And then last one from me, and then we've got quite a bit of time for some questions, is a really interesting trend that our previous CIO, Daniel Ertley, picked up and spoke about quite a lot. And I think this actually applies not just in the startup space, but in terms of the way that most organisations are thinking internally today as well. In that if you look at the capital available in the markets today, the total number of deals is actually increasing. So there's never been a better time to actually start a startup and create a deal and get VC capital for that startup. But interestingly, what's happened is the amount of capital that you should expect has decreased over time. And part of that is due to investors looking to diversify their investments because of the global climate, but also part of it is because of mine's gone blank, sorry. So being able to diversify, but also because the technologies that we've spoken today and those models of product thinking really mean that you actually don't need the same level of capital either. And I talk to a lot of people in large organisations, and they're actually breaking their internal funds release processes by going to their PMOs or their executives and saying, who are used to people going to them and saying, I need $20 million or I need $10 million to do this project, and they're asking for 20 grand. And they're saying, give me 20 grand in 3 months, and I may come back at that point and ask you for 100 grand. And if that goes well, 2 months later, I may come back and ask you for $500,000. But they're actually breaking a lot of the internal models around how finance is released and how it's managed. Along with that, the way that internal governance is working and project offices and those pieces is really changing as well. I work really closely with my peer in REA that runs our equivalent, I guess, of a project office. And in a product model, it's really difficult to say, this is when we start, this is when we finish, and this is the discrete stuff that we're going to build in between, and this is exactly what we're going to spend, and this is the returns that we're intending to see. It's really more a case of, this is what we intend to achieve, this is what we're planning on spending to achieve it, and these are the governance processes that we're going to use along the way to keep you informed of what we're doing. But we can't actually tell you on day one exactly what things are going to look like. And that's causing a lot of tension, I think, in organisations around the world as people are changing their view on the way that they actually want to start projects and manage them and govern.